is protecting public interest. Protecting public interest. And one of the maqasid of our deen, one of the purposes, the main purposes of Islam, is performing that specific action, which is protecting public interest. Where is the, here it is. Does this work, Abdullah? Okay. And Surah Al-Maidah, in terms of its where it's situated in the Quran, within the Sab'a al-Tiwal, the 7 long surahs, these 7 surahs, they tell a story. They tell us the story of our deen. Surah Al-Baqarah gives you the job description and the way that you're going to fulfill it. Surah Al-Imran talks about maintaining it, protecting it from external threats and internal threats. Surah Al-Nisa talks about the ethical system, talks about haqq, righteousness, adl, justice, istiqamah, moral absolutism. That we've been sharing after Fajr for the last few days. Surah Al-Maidah talks about the covenants, the do's and the don'ts, the halals and the harams. Like what is it that you're required to do and what you're not allowed to do. In a very simple method of 15 consecutive Ya ayyuhalladhina amanus. And 15 of them, well, it's a little bit more than 15, but I clumped them up into 15 commands, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu this, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu that. And after each Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, a few verses that comment on the topic that this command is explaining or is asking of you. And these are your covenants. These are your uhud, your uqud. This is the contract that you have with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You gave your shahada, you said La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. You understood your job description, you understood how you're going to fulfill the covenant, the job, the requirements. You understood how to maintain it and protect it. You understand what the ethical system is. Now you have to know what the do's and don'ts are. And a part of the covenants and the commands of Surah Al-Maidah is an understanding embedded in the actual commands that what you're told to do and you're told not to do in many ways are designed to make sure that we protect public interest. We protect the public. It's one thing to protect the individual, which is extremely clear in our deen, protecting the individual, protecting your right to choose freely to whatever faith, hifdh-ud-deen, whatever you want to believe and say. Protecting your right to live, hifdh-un-nafs, to make sure that your life is valuable and that no one transgresses against it. Hifdh-ul-mal, make sure that your wealth is respected and that people can't just come and take it away from you. Hifdh-ul-aql, to take care of your intellect, to protect your mind, your brain, your ability to think clearly and to think freely. And hifdh-ul-ird, to protect your integrity, your self-esteem, your self-image, your reputation. This is for you as an individual. But then Islam also has rulings that are focused on protecting the collective as well. It's not just protecting the person, it's protecting the group. I find that one of the main flaws of the West today is the fact that they have almost completely moved away from this concept, or they have really watered down what it means to protect the collective, the community, the public. And a lot of behaviors that clearly affect the public, affect the group, the collective, are not being seen as negative or problematic, even though they're affecting the public, because we focus so much on personal interest, on individualistic freedom. The focus is on individual freedom to the point where we are ignoring the public's best interest. And that is where the Quran comes and explains certain things. And that's the only way you can understand hudud in our deen. The punishments that exist in our deen, some of them are severe, quite heavy. We have capital punishment in the Quran. If you kill someone and it's premeditated murder, then you're executed. If you steal from hirz al-mithl, if you commit break and entry and you steal after committing break and entry, then you can lose your hand. If you perform zina publicly, then you can be lashed 70 times or 100 times. If you speak about someone and accuse them of zina, and you don't have evidence and it cannot be proven, then you'll be lashed. There's all these rulings that are quite severe. Now, are they a clear transgression against human dignity and human freedom? Well, that's what the arguments become. If Islam is so interested in hifz al-nafs and hifz al-deen and hifz al-aql and hifz al-mal and hifz al-ird, the protection of all the things I pointed out a moment to you, then why is it allowing such, brutal punishments? Well, it's because of this. Or maybe not this, because this is not what I was. Where are we? There we are. Protecting public interest. Surah Al-Maidah has all these commands, has all these requests. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, do this. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, don't do this. Within these commands are aspects of protecting public interest. Meaning, there are many things that we are required to do, commanded to do, and commanded not to do in order for us to protect the public, not just ourselves. I think the world was granted a very severe or heavy lesson on that recently, within our lifetime. But I don't see that we've learned much from it. Because up till 2019, it was you eat what you want. And it's your personal freedom to eat what you want. But then someone ate a bat somewhere, and we all got sick and almost died. So what ended up occurring from all that is that, well, maybe it's not just your personal freedom. Maybe even eating, there are personal freedoms within that choice. Within those options, there are personal freedoms. But then there are other options that are not personal freedoms. They threaten the public. They threaten the public interest. And if we're not going to restrict those or draw some parameters, we're going to all be in trouble. And balancing that is what Islam is really good at. And I don't see the West capable of doing that very much. The West has lost its grasp on that. We've given up the best interest of the public for personal freedoms that don't really mean much. I worked in Emerge for a number of years as a resident and as a fellow. You see the amount of substance abuse that exists within a city. There are frequent flyers, we call them. Frequent flyers. They're coming in every second, third night, overdosed on something. And they get stuck in hospital maybe for a night or two, or sometimes even longer than that. Costing the public system a lot of money. Taxpayer money being paid upon someone who, the moment you discharge them, is going to go back and do the exact same thing that brought him in the first place. And you have no ability to stop it. And there's no intention of stopping it. And to even suggest that maybe this person here shouldn't be granted all of his freedoms because he doesn't know how to use them well becomes a political argument. Becomes, you're a right, and then the left, and then it's used to smear your reputation. When really you're just trying to make a simple observation that this person doesn't seem to have good control. They can't seem to make things work. They're failing themselves. They're harming themselves and the public. So what do we do with that? Do we just allow it to continue? Well, that's what we're doing. Well, let's see where that takes us. It's not going to take us anywhere good. And there's no rahmah even for the individual who's within it all. He may be upset that you take away his personal freedom on a certain level. But in the long run, he'll thank you. You do that all the time, by the way. With your children, you do this all the time. You don't let your children do whatever they want. You restrict their freedoms. If you're a good father and good mother, you're going to restrict their freedoms. And you may restrict their freedoms heavily for a long time if you really are good and you love them. So that later on they can enjoy a life that has quality to it, where they're well educated and they're disciplined and they have good habits. They can live well and be happy. If you let them do whatever they want, they're not going to turn out happy. We know that by millennia of experience in trying different things. That's what works. It's not that different for community. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks to us as human beings as we would speak to our children, actually at a higher level. I do not create my children. I just contributed to their coming to the world. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created from nothing. So as you would speak to your child, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks to us sometimes. And the goal is to protect that public interest that we all care for. So let's go and recite the first verses. So he says subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is a heavy one. إنما جزاء الذين يحاربون الله ورسوله ويسعون في الأرض فسادا أن يقتلوا أو يصلبوا أو تقطع أيديهم وأرجلهم من خلاف أو ينفوا من الأرض ذلك لهم خزي في الدنيا ولهم في الآخرة عذاب عظيم إلا الذين تابوا من قبل أن تقدروا عليهم فاعلموا أن الله غفور رحيم. So when you think about the concept of terrorism, the actual definition of what it means, someone who is causing terror within an area, someone who is going around just raping and killing and destroying and murdering and performing actions that are compromising public safety, compromising people. It's not, the moment people stop feeling safe in their homes, you run into a different type of problem. It's a domino effect. Once a person stops feeling safe in his house or in his city, it's the first domino falling that will lead to many consequences later on that sometimes lawmakers don't notice. There's a lot of value for people feeling safe in their homes, knowing that they can go to sleep not worrying about someone breaking in, stealing or killing or vandalizing property. It means a lot. I grew up in a country where that was the case. We slept with our doors open. At 1 o'clock in the morning, I could drive to Damascus and get a meal and come back and really not care. I would never scared of anything. Once the things changed, it changed forever. Once we lost it, we lost it. And it changed the way people think, and it changed relationships, and it changed the ethics of people towards one another, the kindness and the empathy and the openness. A lot of that went away. So when you have people doing that, that's why this ayah is is a strict one, I'm sharing with you probably the strictest ayah in the entirety of the Quran. إنما للحصر, meaning exclusively. جزاء الذين يحاربون الله ورسوله. The punishment of those who go around causing war against Allah and His Prophet, meaning against the Muslims. Those who are just going around provoking warfare, trying to put together armies, trying to cause wars. Those who are provoking wars, يحاربون. ويسعون في الأرض فسادا. And they walk on this earth trying to cause corruption. We call it racketeering. There's a law for it, by the way, in the US. A racketeering law. That if it can be proven on, they use this all the time. They try to use it to pin it on mob leaders. Like the organized criminality, organized crime. Usually, it's hard to prove things, but they try to prove some form of law of racketeering, where they're soliciting ongoing harm. Now, this person is not doing one problem. This person is moving a whole network of people who are just stealing and killing and selling drugs and doing all these things. That's a problem. It ruins places. It ruins countries. It ruins economies. It ruins generations. It ruins generations of human beings. It's very, very harmful. But we've become so self-centered that we don't care. We don't even notice them anymore. The people standing on those lights with the little signs asking for money that they're going to go use to buy more methamphetamines or cocaine or whatever else that they use. And if you go downtown deep enough, they're everywhere. These are human beings. These are human beings, just like you, just like me. They could have had a nice future. They could have had a great life. They could have grown up and educated themselves and fell in love and loved others and people loved them and had it, but they don't. You understand how crippling that is to a society? Because when people don't contribute to society, they don't sit neutral. No one sits neutral, brothers and sisters, ever. There's no such thing. Either you contribute positively or you contribute negatively. Either you are doing something that is positive to the society or you're offering something that's negative. And these people, they're going to be in the negative. When we don't care about public interest, and we don't care about how families grow up, and we don't care about poverty, and we don't care about substance abuse, and we don't care about domestic abuse, and we don't care, then you're going to have young people that grow up within these circumstances, abused and molested, and uncared for, and unloved, and have no education. What do you think they're going to do? What, they're just going to stand there at the lights asking for pennies? They're going to be happy with that? No, they're not. They're going to want to live just like you. They're going to see you in your nice car, your clean clothes, and they're going to want that. And they're not going to understand why they didn't get that in life. They're going to feel abandoned by their own community. They're going to feel abandoned by their country. They're going to feel abandoned by the people, by the citizens of the city they lived in. They were allowed to grow up with such abuse and disrespect and mistreatment that now they have no potential in life. And they are basically sentenced to a lifelong struggle of mental health problems and substance abuse and lack of wealth. It's hard to get a job. They can't get hired. And whatever jobs they get hired in, they don't pay well. Who's responsible for this? The 20-year-old. How can you call him responsible for this? He's 20. He barely knows anything. Forgive me, all 20-year-olds who think that they are ulama. You don't know anything yet. You haven't tried anything in life. You haven't gone anywhere. You don't know. That's how I feel. It's not disrespectful. It's just I know it's saghir. You deserve. You need to be taken care of for a while. Still, there's a lot ahead of you before you can figure out. There's so much. You're almost not accountable, in my opinion, yet. You haven't. How many of them exist within our society who aren't going anywhere? How many Muslims are like that? How many Muslim youth are that way? Forget about let's say we're not going to talk about the larger Canadian society, which we should care about, by the way. And they are brothers and sisters, whether we like it or not, and whether you agree with that or not. That's the reality. You're Canadian. These are your people. But even within your Muslim community, how many youth are in high school already addicted to something? Gambling or substances or Allahu Alam, what else? They grow up in households where they're not being educated, not being taken care of, no stable role models that they can look up to. Relationship, they don't even know how to build a relationship because the people in front of them don't know how to do it either. How are they going to grow up and make it? How are we going to ask them later on to contribute positively in society? How am I going to demand that they need to know? That's on us. We failed them. We failed these people. That's why we have to care about the collective. This ayah is strict because of that. Those who provoke war, those who walk in earth causing corruption, the effect is not just on the individual, the effect ruins societies. When you bring war and corruption, you bring drugs and alcohol and prostitution and gambling, and you bring that to society, you corrupt the society. And it affects the children later on. It affects the next generation that's going to grow up. They're going to grow up in bad households. They're going to grow up disadvantaged. You're going to end up with a weak community, with weak people, and weak men and weak women, in a weak country. That's going to lead to that weakness will lead to collapse eventually. So that's why this ayah is so strict. Their punishment, أن يقتلوا, that they are all executed. Or yusallabu, or they are going to be crucified at the entrances of their cities. Crucified. You hear this? The last person we know crucified was Isa alayhi salam. And then obviously Sayyidina Khubayb ibn Adi radiyallahu anhu. That's it. It's very rare. Yusallabu. They should be crucified. أو تقطع أيديهم وأرجلهم من خلاف. They need both chop off their right hand and the left leg, so that they walk crippled for the rest of their lives and they can't do anything. And people see them that way. Why? Because what they're doing is that what they're actually doing is threatening public safety and public stability and the future of our ummah. Do you know what war does? Ask the Iraqis what war does. Ask the Syrian what war does. Ask the Yemenis what war does. Ask them. Ask the Palestinians what war does to them. What war does to families and people and homes and countries, and what it does to children and their mentality, what happens. I haven't been back to Syria. I won't lie to you, I'm scared to go back. Because I have this image in my mind that brings me comfort at night when I try to go to sleep. When I want to go to sleep, I can just go back to 2007 or 2010 and exist somewhere in that era, and I can be happy. I don't want to go back and see what's changed, because I know what's changed. I know that the ethics have changed and the principles have changed, the values have changed, and people have changed because they underwent 14 years of war. What do I expect? What do you think happens after 14 years of war? Preceded by 50 years of oppression and absolute lack of freedom. Well, that's why this ayah is so strict. People who do this, people who bring war, people who bring corruption to the streets of a city, they should be executed or crucified or have their arms and opposite legs chopped off. أو ينفوا من الأرض, or kicked out forever. In Nafis, where they're sent to exile. They're removed forever. They're never allowed back again. leaving the option open for the imam, the political leader, to choose, or the judge to make his choice based on the offense itself. Rape is seen that way. This is where rape falls, by the way. Zina is when it's consensual. Both agree. Rape is when a man, or sometimes a woman, performs it against the will of another person. That falls under this. هَذَا يَسْعَوْنَ فِي الْأَرْضِ فَسَادًا. You go around and you rape a woman. A lady is walking safely in the street. She can't be safe anymore. She can't be safe. That's what your behavior, that's terror. That's يَسْعَوْنَ فِي الْأَرْضِ فَسَادًا. That needs execution or crucifixion for everyone to see. It's strict. But the reason that it's strict is not because we don't care for the rights of the individual. It's because we equally care for the rights of the public. Because the jama'ah matters too. Because the safety of the group is important. It has long-term consequences that if you don't care for, then you're cheating your children and your grandchildren out of a decent life. When we try to preserve individual freedoms only, because they are the problem that we're dealing with now, and we sacrifice the interest of the public, there won't be an ummah later. There won't be people to follow any of this. This whole thing will be gone. Islam is based on the strength of the units that commit to it. The units as in families, the units as in small communities, the units as in larger societies and countries. If people are allowed to provoke war and walk around and causing terror and corruption, then there's not going to be any of that. Imagine the first person that brought a drug to a city that didn't have drugs before. Imagine this. People walking around don't even know what drugs are, aside from what the pharmacist is giving out based on the prescription of a doctor. And then someone brings a few pills and says, hey, try to just take one, just one. See if you like it. Imagine this. This is not, this is يَسْعَوْنَ فِي الْأَرْضِ فَسَادًا. That needs to be crucified. People should be scared of that. Because this ruins communities. This sends generations of people in the wrong direction. Turning them from people that could have lived a moral life, a good life, a life that was productive for themselves and others, to a life that is meaningless, that is miserable. Turning them into criminals and thieves and Allahu Akbar. A'udhu billah. A'udhu billah. The fact, I'm taking some time because if you don't feel this is a big deal, then you've been numbed a little bit. Forgive me. The Western society has numbed you a bit. This is an absolute crime. Anything that affects the public sphere, how people function, how people feel, how people see life, how people experience life, it's a crime because it's consequences, it's a ripple effect. It goes on for years. And Islam differentiates between the sin that you perform that affects you and the sin that you perform that affects the public. And when you affect the jama'ah, no. If you go and you commit zina inside your house, forgive me, no one cares. Couldn't care less. If you don't care about your akhirah, no one should. If you don't care about your akhirah, that's your problem. But you commit zina publicly, you're going to be lashed. How dare you try and ruin the ethics of society? When you do that publicly and people see it, you are now normalizing haram. You're allowing younger people who are on the edge to go in a direction they would never gone to had you not done this. That's why you're lashed. It's not because they've committed zina. It's because they did it publicly. That's why you need 4 shuhud udul. You need 4 grown, respected pillars of society to see it. Who is going to do it? If whoever did this did it in the middle of the street, or did it and took a video and posted it publicly for everyone to see. That's ruining the ethics of a community. That requires punishment. What you do in the secrecy or the privacy of your home, that's your business. It's haram. Do not misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm not inviting you. It's haram. It's one of the worst capital sins that we have in our deen. But there's no punishment for it if you're doing it behind closed doors. Actually, if someone peeks in through the window and sees you and tells on you, they get lashed. If 4 people, they just remove a curtain to see you, Islamically, if they remove a curtain to see you, and there are 4 of them, as the Quran says 4, if they had to remove a curtain to see you, then all 4 get lashed. Because it was none of their business. Because you are responsible for your own dhunub. You'll carry them yawm al-qiyamah, we all will. But when you affect the public sphere, that's a whole different story. That's why this ayah. But look at the end of it. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ تَابُوا مِن قَبْلِ أَن تَقْدِرُوا عَلَيْهِمْ. Those before they are brought to punishment, they straighten their lives out. Then grant them that. Grant them, give them a sentence that is fit for their tawbah. فَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. Allah will forgive as well. If before you're able to figure out what happened, they change their ways, then take that into consideration. Because the point of this verse is not to be brutal with human beings. No, it's to protect the public. It's to protect the ummah, the unity of the jama'ah, of the community, of this country, of something left. He says subhanahu wa ta'ala in the second group of ayat, لُعِنَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا مِن بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ عَلَى لِسَانِ دَاوُودَ وَعِيسَى بْنِ مَرْيَمَ ذَلِكَ بِمَا عَصَوْا وَكَانُوا يَعْتَدُونَ كَانُوا لَا يَتَنَاهَوْنَ عَن مُنكَرٍ فَعَلُوهُ لَبِئْسَ مَا كَانُوا يَفْعَلُونَ وَتَرَى كَثِيرًا مِّنْهُمْ يَتَوَلَّوْنَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا لبئس ما قدمت لهم أنفسهم أن سخط الله عليهم وفي العذاب هم خالدون ولو كانوا يؤمنون بالله والنبي ما اتخذوهم أولياء ولكن كثيرا منهم فاسقون. The disbelievers of Bani Israel were cursed with the words of Dawood and Isa ibn Maryam, David alayhi salam and Jesus alayhi salam. They both cursed out the disbelievers of Bani Israel. They had heavy words for their own people. This is the two prophets of Bani Israel. Two prophets, one king and one messenger. One Rasul and one king prophet. And they both come from Bani Israel, and they were both sent to Bani Israel. So it's a very internal matter. But we have something to learn from it. They cursed out their own people, the kuffar amongst them. Why? ذَلِكَ بِمَا عَصَوْا وَكَانُوا يَعْتَدُونَ. It's because of their ongoing transgressions, sin. What was it that they did? كَانُوا لَا يَتَنَاهَوْنَ عَن مُنكَرٍ فَعَلُوهُ. When munkar happened, no one pointed out, that's munkar, that's wrong, you don't do that. They all just ignored it. They ignored it. They ignored munkar. They acted like it wasn't a problem. Well, I don't want to rock the boat. I want to hurt someone's feelings. I want to say something that's going to rub someone the wrong way, so I won't say it. I'll just ignore it. It's a munkar. Everyone knows it's wrong. Everyone agrees it's wrong, but they know it's wrong. There's no disagreement that this is wrong, but we're not going to say anything. What happens when that occurs? When munkar is allowed and no one says anything, and there's no backbone amongst the Muslims or amongst the people to point it out that it's problematic, what do you think happens? Khalas. They lost everything. They lost their ethics. They lost their morals. They lost their deen. They lost everything, Banu Israel. And till this day, you think they have Palestine, they are in loss. They continue in loss. Why? Because now not only have they lost all that, now they're going to carry Yawm al-Qiyamah, the sin of transgression and oppression and murder and going against Scripture. They are digging their graves deeper and deeper and deeper. Why? كانوا لا يتناهون عن منكر فعلوا لبئس ما كانوا يفعلون. What a horrible thing then. What a horrible thing they used to do. How could they not do this? How could they see munkar and not point it out? How else do you protect a community? Aside from seeing something wrong and saying that's not appropriate. You don't have to be aggressive about it. You don't have to be rude about it. But you have to point it out. And we all have to do that. Or else people won't stop. If someone brings a munkar and no one says anything, khalas. Imagine someone walking into the masjid, nice big beer. Starts drinking his beer. If we all ignore it, his friend tomorrow will come in with another beer. And if we ignore that, a few weeks later, the musallin are standing behind me with their cans of beer in front of them. And khalas, it doesn't matter anymore. No one feels anything. Why? Because لا يتناهون عن منكر فعلوه. Because no one cares anymore. Let me move on to the last ayah because I'm running out of time. I have to take some time. So this is a long ayah. Or ayat. يا أيها الذين آمنوا شهادة بينكم إذا حضر أحدكم الموت حين الوصية اثنان ذوى عدل منكم أو آخران من غيركم إن أنتم ضربتم في الأرض فأصابتكم مصيبة الموت تحبسونهما من بعد الصلاة فيقسمان بالله إن ارتبتم لا نشتري به ثمنا ولو كان ذا قربى إنا إذا لمن الآثمين فإن عثر على أنهما استحقا إثما
فآخران يقومان مقامهما من الذين استحق عليهم الأوليان فيقسمان بالله لشهادتنا أحق من شهادتهما وما اعتدينا إنا إذا لمن الظالمين ذلك أدنى أن يأتوا بالشهادة على وجهها أو يخافوا أن ترد إيمان بعد إيمانهم واتقوا الله واسمعوا والله لا يهدي القوم الفاسقين. These verses, I'm going to paraphrase and try to explain them without going into the linguistic details of every word because it takes a while to do that. It talks about someone who's going to leave a wasiyah, someone who's on his deathbed and they need to leave a wasiyah. Back at the time when we didn't have as much documentation as we have today, and lawyers were not all over the place where you can just call a notary public and they can come, and we don't have ways to record and keep track of things. So it was all based on testimonies. So if I'm on my deathbed and I'm turning and I want to give my wasiyah, so what do we do? Ithnani dawa adlin minkum. You need to bring two people, dawa adl, meaning people who are just, who are known to be just. They have an ethical trend of being fair. That's how. اثنان ذوى عدل منكم أو آخران من غيركم إن أنتم ضربتم في الأرض. Or if you can't find people of that standard and you could, because you're traveling or somewhere out far away, then find two other people. The standard doesn't have to be that high, but you have to find two people. تحبسونهما من بعد الصلاة. You hold them after salah. Why after salah? Because if they're not praying in the masjid, they're not ذوى عدل. Like if they don't come to the masjid, then they're not dawa adl to begin with. They have to be at least performing the basics of Islamic rituals. So they have to be known to be just and fair and ethically impeccable, and they have to be Muslim, practicing Muslims. You'll hold them after salah, and you have to sit with them, and you have to say, يقسمان بالله. I need you to take an oath. إن ارتبتم. If anyone gets confused, or if people doubt what it is that he is saying later on, لا نشتري به ثمنا. We will not sell our consciences. We won't sell for the biggest, highest bidder to say whatever they want. Well, why is this a problem? Well, when someone dies, if they're wealthy, there's potentially a lot of money involved. There's potentially a lot of money involved if someone's wealthy who's passing away, or he wants to leave a wasiyah. And if there's no way to document, it's just going to be testimony. Well, if you bring me two guys and they stand there and I say, I want to give a third of what I own to this place, and then I die. And the two people listen to me. They walk out. No one was there aside from them, or the person who was with them from the family doesn't remember. They come to you. What did he say? Well, he said he's going to give a third of his wealth to this. That's untrue. They fight. Some other guy takes you aside and says, how much? How much to say that there's no wasiyah? How much do you want? And they put a little bit of money in your pocket. How much do you want? They keep on putting money in your pocket until you're happy. And then you break your oath. We won't sell out and make money off it. Indeed, we are sinful if we do that. فإن عثر على أنهما استحقا إثما. If it's found later that they are sinful, if it's found later, if as you have brought them to be the two witnesses for your wasiyah, you'll find out that استحقا إثما. They are people who are sinful. فآخران يقومان مقامهما. Get rid of them and bring two other people and do it again. So if later on you find that there's a flaw in their character, they're sinful, they have a sin that everyone that is known, that's public, that they don't actually hide, then get rid of them, bring other people. فَآخَرَانِ يَقُومَانِ مَقَامَهُمَا مِنَ الَّذِينَ اسْتَحَقَّ عَلَيْهِمُ الْأَوْلَيَانِ. From amongst those who were talked about at the beginning, dawa adl, and after salah, and all that stuff. And they have to make an oath, لَشَهَادَتُنَا أَحَقُّ مِنْ شَهَادَتِهِمَا. Indeed, our testimony will be better than theirs. وَمَا اعْتَدَيْنَا. And we have never transgressed. We are not known to be sinful people. إِنَّا إِذًا لَمِنَ الظَّالِمِينَ. Why all this? Why all this? ذلك أدنى أن يأتوا بالشهادة على وجهها أو يخافوا أن ترد إيمان بعد إيمانهم واتقوا الله واسمعوا. That's to make sure that testimony is delivered appropriately, and that people are afraid about their own oaths and what can happen if they lie within those oaths. Because if we lose trust, because if we don't have the ability to be trustworthy when we are transmitting testimonies or transmitting information that we heard, then there's no hope for the society that we live in. You see, the verses that I've talked to you about so far have been, one was about corrupting society and bringing terrorism into it and ruining it, provoking war, and the other one was about seeing munkar and just not caring about munkar, allowing munkar to happen and just not saying anything about it. This one here is on even a more simple level, in my opinion. It's even more simple. It's just testimony. Can we trust one another to say the truth when needed? Can we trust one another in just conveying a message that was given? This later on, by the way, became the basis of the discipline of hadith, of mustalah al-hadith. This verse here became later on the basis of mustalah al-hadith, of how the scholars later on would figure out how they were going to judge narrators. Why? Because the Prophet ﷺ lived a full life. He was active, he was out there, he was speaking, he was listening, he was performing actions, he had habits, he accepted things, he refused other things, he was happy, he was sad, he laughed and he cried, he helped and he held back and he went forward. He did many things, alayhi salatu wasalam. The Quran gives us a certain record of certain, but many of the things that he did are not in the Quran, and we actually need to know how he did it so we can understand the Quran better. Well, who's going to tell us all this stuff? Jibreel does not speak to us directly, he spoke to us through him, alayhi salatu wasalam. So who's going to do this? His companions and his wives and his children and all the people and his relatives were going to tell us what he did. He stood like this, he sat like this, he spoke like this, he dressed like that. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam ajma'in. Well, how are we going to accept their testimony? Because by the time people started actually writing things down, when paper became readily available, and they could sit down and write everything they wanted down, it was 150 years after he passed away, alayhi salatu wasalam, at least. This is like a very conservative number. There's no hope. There's absolutely no, on a personal level, just being able to find a way to make sure that we are truthful when we convey messages, when we convey a testimony from someone who's offering it. And this ayah came and explained that. It is an ayah that served the Muslims well for a long time in terms of inheritance, and it became the basis of narration, of chains of narration, of what you're looking at. Not be true. It may not be true. I'm just letting you know, because there's no... that he went, radiallahu anhu, Imam Bukhari, on a 250-kilometer travel, journey, to take a hadith from a person. He goes, he gets there, he finds the man calling upon his naqa, upon his she-camel or camel, and he is, he's going, Ali, come to me, come to me. So the naqa sees, and she comes running. So Imam Bukhari says, what do you have in your hand? Do you have something in your hand? He said, no. He said, I don't want your hadith, and he leaves. He said, تكذب على الناقة تكذب على رسول الله عليه الصلاة والسلام. You lie to the camel, you lie about the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام. I don't want it. Now you may say, oh, that is extreme. Yeah, I agree. But because he was like that, radiallahu anhu, the hadith that we have, we're so comfortable with. We narrate it with such a high degree of comfort because he respected this. That's how you preserve communities, to make sure people can trust one another, to learn to be ethically impeccable so that you can be trusted in the way that what you say, so that relationships can continue. We'll end with that, inshallah. Tomorrow, the dars will start at 7 o'clock. I urge you all today to make dua for all of the brothers who are standing outside organizing parking. This is the closest thing I've seen to jihad fi sabilillah in this country. They are standing outside in minus 13, and God knows with the wind how what it feels like, to help people park their cars to pray. So if you're not willing to work with them and respect them and thank them and make dua for them, then I don't know if there's any barakah in what we're doing here. So please make sure you take, and out of mercy for them, I'm going to actually make my dars 15 minutes late. We start at 7. So people come in later, so that they can come in later, and they don't have to spend as much time standing in the cold outside. Tomorrow, I'll start at 7 o'clock. 30 minutes is more than enough. You hear me talk a lot anyway, so 30 minutes is more than, we'll just do 30 minutes. And please, as you come in, take a moment and thank these people who are taking out their time out of their day and evening. Wallahi, we don't pay any of them. They do it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A little bit of ajr that they look forward to. And if you have some time to also help, if you're someone who feels the ability, then to give them a night off, or to give one of them a night off so they can come and pray, and then you can do it, then you get ajr as well for doing that. Subhanakallah bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi. Jazakumullah khair.